Chapter 17. The Descendants of the Surya Dynasty and Lord Ram's Pastimes. Sutta Goswami said, after the great sages were comfortably seated, Lord Kalki, the protector of religious principles, worshipped them and then spoke as follows. Lord Kalki said, "You are as brilliant as the sun, inclined to reside in holy places of pilgrimage, and engaged in work for the welfare of the world. Who are you? You must have come here as a result of my good fortune. We are certainly most fortunate because today your soothing glances are cast upon me." In response, the great sages Vamadev, Atri, Vashishta, Kalva, Parasara, Narada, Ashvatthama, Parashuram, Kripacharya, Trita, Durvasa, Devala, Kanva, Ved Pramiti, and Angira, as well as many others, along with King Maru and King Devapi of the Chandra and Surya dynasties, all of whom were enriched by their severe penance, replied all together. The sages spoke to Lord Kalki just as the demigods had previously spoken to Lord Hari on the shore of the Milk Ocean. The sages said, "All glories to you, Lord of the universe. You reside within the hearts of all living entities. O Supreme Soul, you are the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of the universe. Please be merciful to us. O husband of Padmavati, you are the eternal time factor, and all activities within the universe are thus impelled by you alone. Even the demigods like Brahma glorify your lotus feet. Please be satisfied with us." After hearing these prayers, Lord Kalki said, "O sages, who are these two kings? They appear to be very powerful, as if they are enriched by the performance of severe penance. Why have they come here after offering prayers to the Ganga?" Lord Kalki then turned to the two kings and said, "Why are you engaged in glorifying the river Ganga? Who are you? What are your names?" After hearing the words of Lord Kalki, King Maru, who was the more qualified of the two, folded his hands and very humbly narrated the history of his dynasty. King Maru said, "You are the Super Soul, residing in everyone's heart. You know the intentions of all living entities. O Lord, in accordance with your order, I will describe everything you have inquired about. O Lord, Brahma was born from your navel. From Brahma, Marichi was born. From Marichi, Manu was born. From Manu, Satyavikrama was born, and from him, Ikshvaku was born. From Ikshvaku, Yuvanashva was born, and from him, Mandata was born. From Mandata, Purukushat was born, and from Purukushat, Anaranya was born. And from him, Trasadasyu was born. From Trasadasyu, Haryayashva was born. From Haryayashva, Traruna was born. From him, Trishanku was born. From Trishanku, Harishchandra was born. And from Harishchandra, Harita was born. From Harita, Bakaru was born. And from him, Viraka was born. From Viraka, Asmanya was born. From Asmanya, Asnumana was born. From Vrika, Asmanya was born. From Asmanya, Anshuman was born. From Anshuman, Dilipa was born. And from him, Bhagirath was born. Because Bhagirath brought the Ganga to this world, she is also known as Bhagirathi. Because the Ganga originated from your lotus feet, everyone glorifies, offers obeisances to, and worships her. From King Bhagirath, Nabha was born. From Nabha, Sindhudvip was born. From Sindhudvip, Ayutayu was born. And from Ayutayu, Ritparna was born. From Ritparna, Sudasa was born. From Sudasa, Saudasa was born. From Saudasa, Ashmaka was born. And from Ashmaka, Mulaka was born. From Mulaka, King Dasharath was born. From Dasharath, Edavid was born. From Edavid, Vishvasha was born. And from him, Katvanga was born. From Katvanga, Dirgvahu was born. Dirgvahu, Raghu was born. And from Raghu, Aja was born. And from Aja, Dasharath was born. This Dasharath was the father of Lord Ram, the incarnation of Lord Hari, the master of the universe. Lord Kalki became very pleased while hearing the glorious dynasty of Lord Ram. He then requested King Maru to narrate Lord Ramachandra's glories. King Maru said, "My dear Lord, no one can properly describe the pastimes of the Lord of Janaki. What to speak of others? Even Lord Ananta, with 1,000 mouths, is unable to do so. Still, by your order, I will describe to the best of my ability the transcendental characteristics and pastimes of Lord Ram, the hearing of which nullifies all sinful reactions and destroys all miseries. Long ago, at the request of the demigods, headed by Brahma, Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Sita, who brought an end to the dynasty of Ravan, appeared as the son of Maharaj Dasharath of the Surya dynasty. Lord Ram distinguished himself in his youth by killing many demons, headed by Taraka, in the sacrificial arena of the sage Vishvamitra. It is only by the mercy of the supremely powerful Lord Ram that one does not return to this material world. He is the master of the art of discharging weapons, and his transcendental form is most charming to behold. He appeared in this world along with his brother Lakshmana. The Lord, his brother, and Vishvamitra went to the assembly of King Janak. In that assembly, Ram and Lakshman sat behind the great sage Vishvamitra, just as Chandra sits behind Brahma in his assembly. When King Janak saw the greatly effulgent Ramachandra, the original personality of Godhead, the supreme absolute truth, he was convinced that he was the suitable husband for his daughter. Although the king had arranged for certain conditions to be met who would accept his daughter's hand in marriage, he regretted this, and so he approached Lord Ram. After being worshipped by King Janak and receiving the sidelong glance of Sita, Lord Rama, the son of Dasharatha, effortlessly picked up the bow of Lord Shiva and broke it in half. A thundering, tremendous sound filled the four directions. All the assembled kings and sages were astonished to see Rama's extraordinary prowess. Thereafter, the pious King Janak greeted Ram and his three brothers, according to the prescribed procedure, and then handed over his four nicely dressed and decorated daughters to them. When Lord Ram was returning to Ayodhya after his marriage, he met Parashuram, who was filled with rage. Finally, when Ramachandra returned to his palace at Ayodhya, King Dashrath consulted his ministers and decided to install Shri Ram as the heir to the throne. However, one of Dashrath's queens, Kaikeyi, having been influenced by a wicked maidservant, approached the king and forbade him to install Shri Ram as the future king. As a result, Ramachandra, along with his wife, Sita, and his brother, Lakshmana, went to the forest in exile by the order of his father. The morose citizens followed them as far as they were permitted. After walking some distance, Lord Ramachandra arrived at the kingdom of Guhaka. There, the Lord gave up his royal dress and put on clothing made of tree bark and kept his hair matted. In the forest, Lord Ram, along with his wife and brother, lived like a sage. Everyone who chanced to meet him in the forest worshipped him with great devotion. Eventually, the Lord built a cottage at Panchavati and continued to reside there. This was where Bharat came to cry and persuade Lord Ram to return to Ayodhya. Lord Ram refused and continued to live in the forest for a period of 14 years, despite knowing that his father had passed away in his absence. One day, as Sita, Ram, and Lakshman were sitting peacefully, Surpanakha, the sister of 10-headed Ravan, who was dressed very beautifully and thus appeared very charming with her smiling face, came there under the influence of lusty desires. Lord Ram made a gesture to Lakshman, who then took his sharp sword and disfigured the Rakshasi by cutting off her nose. Thereafter, Lord Ram killed Surpanakha's brothers, Khara and Dushana, who commanded an army of 14,000 Rakshasa. Finally, in order to please his wife, Rama killed a Rakshasa who had assumed the form of a golden deer. Finding Sita alone in her cottage, the king of the Rakshasas, Ravan, kidnapped her by means of deception. When Lord Ram returned home, he could not find his beloved Sita. He lamented and cried out, "O Sita!" and fell unconscious. Lord Ram searched for Sita everywhere, even in the hermitages of great sages and mountain caves and throughout the forests. Finally, the Lord found the king of birds, Jatayu, as he was about to give up his life, and learned from him how Sita had been kidnapped by Ravan. The Lord performed the last rites of Jatayu, who was just like his father. Lord Ram, the master of releasing arrows, became terribly afflicted by feelings of separation from Sita. In that condition, he went with Lakshman to Rishabha hill, where he met Hanuman, the son of Pavana, who was a friend of Sugriv and very expert at fighting. At the request of Sugriv and Hanuman, Lord Ram killed Vali and thus cemented his friendship with Sugriv. By Lord Ram's mercy, Sugriv became the king of the monkeys. Then, as indicated by Jatayu, Hanuman, while searching for Sita, crossed the ocean and went to Lanka, where he found her in a grove of Ashoka trees. Hanuman conversed with Sita, and after gaining her confidence, he returned to Lord Ram. By employing his immense prowess, Hanuman killed many Rakshasas and set fire to the city of Lanka. Lord Ram, after becoming enraged at the ocean, built a bridge across the water by floating stones, and in this way reached Lanka along with his monkey soldiers. Thereafter, they began to destroy the gardens, fortresses, walls, and gates of that great city. Lord Ram and Sumitra's son, Lakshman, encased themselves in armor and equipped themselves with all kinds of celestial weapons, and thus began to destroy innumerable Rakshasas. The two brothers appeared like the tongue of a poisonous serpent. Nala, Angad, Sugriv, Hanuman, Jamvan, and other powerful monkey soldiers of Lord Ram also killed many of the 10-headed Ravan's followers, using big trees, mountain peaks, and other weapons. They were mad with rage at Ravan, the sworn enemy of the demigods, because he had kidnapped Sita. The unlimitedly powerful Lakshman killed Ravan's son, Indrajit, who drank the blood of others and was surrounded by his wicked followers. He also sent Prahasta, Nikumbha, Makaraksha, Vikata, and others to the abode of Yamraj by means of his sharp sword. Thereafter, the invincible and arrogant Ravan, who was surrounded by millions of warriors, seated upon the elephants, chariots, and horses, as well as infantry soldiers, approached Lord Ram. The incomparably powerful Lord Ram was equipped with celestial weapons as Ravan attacked him. Lord Ramachandra of the Raghu dynasty released his arrows at Ravan, the king of the Rakshasas, who was protected by the benedictions of Brahma and who appeared like a great mountain on the battlefield. Soon, the entire sky became covered with the arrows released by Lord Ram and Ravan, so that the sky appeared to be full of dark clouds. As the arrows and other weapons clashed, they created terrible sounds and sparks, so that the sky appeared to be lit with flashes of lightning. The sounds of drums were heard on the great battlefield, which took a very grim appearance. Finally, 10-headed Ravan, who creates fear even in the mind of the king of the demigods, was killed by a powerful arrow of Lord Ram, compounded by the curse of angry Sita. Hanuman joyfully reunited Sita, who was pure like fire, with Lord Ramachandra, before they all returned home. By the request of Indra, the king of the demigods, Lord Ram entrusted the responsibility for ruling the kingdom of Lanka to Vibhishan, Ravan's brother. Thereafter, surrounded by the best of monkeys and accompanied by Lakshman and Sita, Lord Ram returned to Ayodhya after mounting the celestial Pushpaka chariot that was given to him by Kuber. While passing over the forests in which he had earlier resided during his exile, the Lord remembered how he had lived like a sage, and he had become a good friend of his kind servant Guha. After his return to Ayodhya, the Lord was worshipped by the great sages. He pacified his brother, Bharat, who had been greatly pained due to the separation from him. By the order of his mothers, Lord Ram sat on his father's throne and commenced ruling the kingdom. His coronation ceremony was performed by great sages, headed by Vashishta Muni. While seated upon the throne of the king of Ayodhya, Lord Ram appeared like the king of the demigods and the master of all living entities. Simply by the Lord's presence, the kingdom of Ayodhya flourished in all respects. The Brahmanas cheerfully engaged in performing their austerities. Because the clouds showered sufficient rain at the proper time, the earth appeared green and full of prosperity. Indeed, the people of the entire world became peaceful and pious. By exhibiting his transcendental qualities, Lord Ramachandra, the reservoir of pleasure, fulfilled the desires of everyone and especially pleased the heart of Sita. In this way, the Lord ruled Ayodhya for 11,000 years. He satisfied the demigods by performing many gorgeous sacrifices, including 3 horse sacrifices. Then, for his divine reason, Lord Ram exiled Sita to the forest, and he appeared to act very mercilessly. At that time, the magnanimous sage Valmiki gave Sita shelter in his ashram. In due course of time, Sita gave birth to 2 glorious sons, named Love and Kush, at the hermitage of the sage Valmiki. After growing up, they sang the narration of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes, composed by Valmiki. When Valmiki brought Sita and her 2 sons to see Lord Ram, the Lord said to her, "My dear Sita, you must again enter fire to prove your purity." Upon hearing these words, Mother Sita entered within the earth and went to Rasatala. Thereafter, Lord Ram, his family priest Vashishta, and his brothers, followers, and indeed all the inhabitants of Ayodhya, including the animals, happily bathed in the river Sarayu, and then ascended to Vaikunt on celestial chariots. By faithfully hearing these nectarian narrations of Lord Ram's pastimes, one gets relief from all material pangs, is awarded good children, wealth, and followers, and ultimately attains the spiritual world. While hearing this narration, one's mind floats in an ocean of transcendental bliss as the ocean of material existence dries up, so that by the mercy of the Lord of Lakshmi, one attains liberation. Thus ends the translation of the 17th chapter of Shri Kalki Puran. Shri Radha.